us tonight. We're hearing from people of the Aamjiwnaang First Nation in Sarnia who went to hospital yesterday to be treated for exposure to benzene. Now, council wants to shut down a nearby facility. Plus, we dive into allegations in a lawsuit filed by a former city administrator who says he was coerced into covering up costs of the Streetcar project, and a concert of a lifetime for one Windsor teacher and her students. And it wasn't just Andrea Bocelli's angelic voice that made it so special. There's anger and frustration among the Aamjiwnaang First Nation. The council has called for a shutdown of a nearby chemical plant, saying it's responsible for people getting sick. The CBC's Chris Ensing spoke to a family treated in hospital.
People keep a close watch of the wind in Aamjiwnaang, wondering what emissions are being blown this way, a habit picked up early.
Our kids go to the daycare and they know the direction of the windsock out front. Like, what other daycare in Canada can tell you the direction of the wind? Christine Rogers and her father Bobby both work for the First Nations sitting south of this chemical plant. On Tuesday, both went home early, feeling sick. My symptoms got worse and worse, and I kind of thought like I had a flu coming on because I had a headache and I was feeling nauseated, and I had cold symptoms like irritated throat, irritated nose, my eyes were sore.
As soon as I had lunch, like I wasn't feeling good, then I started feeling sick, so I ended up, my lunch went, and then I started feeling tingly.
Their symptoms serious. Both went to hospital along with Christine's daughter.
My oxygen level was low for a bit, but it went back up, but I just was still feeling like got kind of out of it, Still, today I still feel a little funny.
All three treated for exposure to benzene, a harmful cancer-causing chemical. People say they've been feeling nauseous and dizzy all week. Chief and council have shut down the band's office buildings, asking people to avoid the playground nearby. The offices that Christine would usually work from are directly across the street from Ineos Styrolution. It's a chemical plant that produces products for plastic and rubber, and through that process, emits benzene. Terrifies me, knowing that he was exposed to it all day long, out how we are now with the wind blowing directly in that direction. It was a north wind that day, it's been blowing at him all day long, and I just what if he had collapsed and was just laying there by himself waiting for someone to come find him? Both want to know why alerts weren't sent to the community earlier when monitors showed air quality was very poor because of high levels of benzene. They also want to know why it was a community member who alerted everyone. It wasn't until she said something that anybody else knew, hey, these two are tied together.
I called the ministry, started asking, what are you doing? This has been going on. The chief and council has been sending you letters. They've been sending them to the government with no reply back. You're not even trying to fix it.
Ada Lockridge is the one who said something. She monitors the public data collected at a station named after her in honor of the fight she has to protect Aamjiwnaang's environment.
Right now, the plants aren't making noise or smoking or flaring, and it can be very beautiful and peaceful.
To keep that peace, council and chief want the Ineos plant shut down.
Frustration and anger is really setting in, for me personally. Until this is fixed, we want the facility closed, period.
Ineos, in a statement, says they're working with the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks to ensure they're meeting standards and regulations. The company is saying it's reviewing the recent data and that health and safety is paramount. Premier Doug Ford was asked today about the demand to shut down the plant.
Well, the request comes in, it goes through the Minister of Environment, and they'll send folks down there to measure air quality, and we'll find out.
This van parked outside Ineos is taking measurements today, while people in Aamjiwnaang are worried about tomorrow.
And now, what levels was he exposed to being out in the open? Is he going to end up with some kind of cancer now? We don't know that. We don't know that answer.
I would just talk to my granddaughter recently, and she works at the daycare, and she was telling me the little kids, they know what's going on. They know they can't go outside. The state knows we can't go outside. We know the air is stinky and it's going to hurt us. That's from a 3-year-old.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Aamjiwnaang.
We also received a statement late this afternoon from Ontario's Minister of Environment, who met with First Nation officials. A spokesperson said they told the company the government expects them to quickly identify and reduce the emissions. Environmental compliance officers are also doing site visits, and the air monitoring unit is in the Sarnia area. The spokesperson went on to say it is also clear that more needs to be done. That's why we are working on updates to the benzene technical standards for petrochemical and petroleum facilities, and to strengthen the environmental penalties regulations so that more financial penalties can be imposed. Well, it's hard to miss. Gas prices have jumped significantly overnight, from an average of $1.65 a liter to $1.76. CBC Windsor's video producer Mike Evans headed to the pumps today to see how that increase is impacting Windsorites.
A huge amount in increase. Like they just gave us a carbon tax, and now it's raised again. It's not fair to the general public, and it's the government, and it needs to stop. For some, it's like it takes away from buying groceries or living expenses or rent. And it's not fair. If they want people to be able to get around, they got to look at reducing something.
Yeah, it's a bit shocking.
Yeah, so when you went and gassed up today, did it cost you a lot more than it normally did?
Oh, absolutely, yes. $83 is a lot for me, and usually around 60-ish. Yeah.
So that was just a huge increase. When did you find out about it?
Oh, I heard on the news last night it was going up today, so it wasn't a big surprise. It's hard to believe that it'll go back down, really.
And it's not just drivers here noticing a big difference. Residents of Eastern Canada are also getting a shock at the pumps. We're seeing the highest prices in nearly 2 years. And as Philip Lee Shannock explains, it appears to have little to do with the federal carbon tax.
Watching the numbers, it's enough to make your head spin.
$83 is a lot for me.
And on top of everything else that's costing more, many Canadians on fixed incomes are figuring out how to cope.
Probably drive less. That's about the only solution I would have.
Across Ontario and Quebec, gas pain is hitting drivers hard.
I'll probably put in a little bit less today and see if the prices go down next week. But yeah, definitely not filling it up at $1.90.
And everyone is looking for who to blame. The petroleum industry says the price of crude oil has been on the rise by more than 20% since November due to tensions in the Middle East.
So geopolitical impacts is clearly the number one reason. And when you add to that all these taxes that we face.
But this analyst says with no fresh rhetoric between Israel and Iran, crude prices are on the way down.
Markets have begun to cautiously and gradually discount the fear of a wider conflagration in the Middle East. And that, I believe, is the main reason we are seeing prices cool off.
Others blame the federal government's price on carbon.
They just gave us a carbon tax, and now it's raised again. It's not fair to the general public, and it's the government, and it needs to stop.
The bulk of this increase has nothing to do with the carbon tax, which hit a few weeks ago and affected really the entirety of Canada.
This analyst says the rapid rise is seasonal and affects not just Eastern Canada, but the entire eastern half of the United States. He says big jumps in gas prices are due to a changeover to summer gasoline blends, which have an expensive additive to combat air pollution. When that transition happens around mid-April, inventories drop.
By summer, they should be able to crank up output of this summer blend of gasoline, and we should start to see prices eventually ease.
He says the entire western half of North America made the switch earlier, and prairie and western provinces had different inventory levels, so drivers there experienced less sticker shock. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
The streetcar project on Windsor's riverfront is set for completion this fall. Already a controversial project, a lawsuit filed from a former city administrator is adding to that. The CBC's Dalton Chen has more.
The mayor's pet project, an extravagant waste of taxpayer money. That's how former city engineer Chris Nepsey describes the legacy beacon site in his wrongful dismissal suit against the municipality. Nepsey alleges he was coerced into covering up the costs of the project and instructed to shift monies to avoid public scrutiny. Mayor Drew Dilkens has denied all allegations and said the city will defend itself in court. Still, those accusations don't surprise a past opponent of the project.
There's been significant manipulation, I think, on trying to get this thing pushed forward, and rather stonewalled deaf ears to any other solutions that were there. It was being pushed, definitely being pushed. And it was predictable with riverfront land that it was going to be severely expensive to do. Of course, there's going to be high bidding on that. And so politically, that just was not palatable.
In 2020, Cardinal led a citizens' campaign against what was then called the Celestial Beacon. His opposition brought forth zoning issues that forced the city to move the project to its current location at the foot of Cairn Avenue. Cardinal says he believed from the beginning the project would go over budget. All construction bids on the legacy beacon site exceeded the $8.4 million approved budget. 1 year ago, council quietly approved any procurements necessary for the project's completion. One councillor who voted against the $8.4 million budget now says he believes in the project, even as the final price tag exceeds $10 million.
You know, I always knew that the Beacon project was going to have a price tag that some folks had expressed some concerns about, and including myself. I don't take the issue of expenditures on any capital project lightly. You know, I've come to the conclusion that I think that once this amenity is in place, I think that there will be a great number of people across the community that will enjoy it, including myself. I'm excited for it to be completed.
The mayor did not respond to a request for further comment on the project. Dawson Chen, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor has been given a failing grade when it comes to the city's fiscal transparency. That's according to the CD Howe Institute's annual report looking into Canada's largest cities.
They all get clean audits, all of the 32 cities we looked at, which is great. They mostly were timely. Some were a little late. Windsor could have been faster, along with things like not being timely and putting the numbers too deep in instead of up front. Those are the areas where the cities that did badly typically did the worst.
The Institute looks at how easily councillors and members of the public can understand the city's financial documents. One issue for Windsor and other communities is that budgets and financial statements are reported differently. They say this doesn't allow people to compare plans and results as well as see budget implications clearly. The city's Commissioner of Finance says she disagrees with the report and how they compiled the results. The city says the F grade doesn't consider the content of the budget and financial report, just the presentation. It says the grade also doesn't consider provincial limitations. Transit services in Windsor and Tecumseh are getting a boost thanks to more than $4.6 million in gas tax funding handed out by the province today. The bulk of that money is going to Transit Windsor, which is based on ridership and population. Municipalities can use the cash to expand service hours, increase routes, purchase new vehicles, and improve accessibility to increase transit ridership.
Great news because it makes sure that the people of the community have a way to get around even if they can't afford a car, and that allows them to get to work, allows them to go see their friends and family, and to access services that they need to really have a great quality of life.
It feels like over the last week, plants and trees have exploded. And if you're thinking those buds are coming in a little early this year, you'd be right. Trees like the magnolia and the native redbud tree are ahead of their schedule in their typical spring bloom. CBC Windsor video producer Mike Evans has more.
Any of the trees that normally bloom in the spring are blooming a lot earlier. And that's primarily because of the fact that we haven't had the deep frost over the winter that we normally get, but we also are getting a lot of early summer type weather, like warm weather, combined with the traditional rains that we get in the spring. It's not just the trees. You'll even look at the bulbs that are coming up right now. They're early. They're at least 2 weeks early. And they're all coming up at the same time instead of sporadically throughout, so you get that longer season. So instead of having a long drawn out spring, we're having it all at once. In some cases, like the white magnolias or the star magnolias that are out, they're done already. And the saucer magnolias, like the one right behind me here, they're pretty much close to the end of their bloom cycle already.
Some of your other trees, like your oaks and your elms, are they producing leaves quicker than normal?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. The native trees know that there's these things that happen, and they're not pushing the leaves out faster. But more of the exotics that like the heat are saying, hey, it's time, and they don't normally need as long a dormancy period in the winter like our native trees. So they're actually pushing their leaves, which is making them susceptible to potential temperature changes. If we go down to frost, we might lose those early leaves. Doesn't mean the tree's dead, it'll send out a new flush of leaves, but it's gonna look sickly for the first part of the season.
Colette, this has got to be one of my favorite times of the year, an absolutely gorgeous time. We could see so many of those flowers and those trees in that video there.
Yeah, so nice that it's a time of rebirth, right?
It is. Now, it is a little wild to me that some of those magnolias that he was talking about are already done blooming. I mean, middle of April, and we're already there.
Yeah, and the focus there kind of on the temperatures in terms of how they have an impact, but also these systems we keep having going through, and rain and wind, that can pull off all those blooms as well. So I'm going to start off with taking a look here at what we can expect in terms of rainfall and systems coming through over the next 5 days, and just give you an idea if you'll be out enjoying the flowers or not. Well, how about for tomorrow? Rain early, okay? And this system's going to move through pretty quickly, so we will get into clearing once it goes through. So that's just early in the day, then it improves. A mix of sun and cloud into Saturday. I do think at times there's going to be more cloud cover than there will be sun, but at least there's a dry day. You know, a little bit, if you travel just a bit north or a little east, a few scattered showers come into the forecast. Some more sunshine, at least partial sunshine, as we go into Sunday. Another chance to enjoy the blooms Monday, and then there it is, Tuesday, the next system. It is April, after all. You got to expect the rain showers. Look at the contrast here. Record-setting heat to the south and active weather in between, because you've got this pressure gradient between warm temperatures and cold temperatures, and that's the next system that is coming our way. I say warm and cold, warm and cooler temperatures, not exactly cold. So our current reading now, 18 degrees on the thermometer, Chatham-Kent at 14, Leamington as well, and Sarnia there, your temperature as well, right around the mid-teens. And you know, this next system, as it comes through, most of it through the overnight, it doesn't have a lot of rain because, or at least accumulations, because of how quickly it's moving through. So let's put it around the 10 millimeter mark for now. Just some lighter showers to the north of us, but we can take a bigger view of this, and then you see this is the main line and system back here, and some of that active weather. All of this is right along that front. Warmer air in front, colder air behind. And when you get back into the prairies, it's been much colder air. Below freezing, snowfall, I mean, not exactly spring showers there. Here goes the rain on through, clearing line quickly behind it. Get the sun back out. A little breezy, though. The wind's coming in from the west behind that. Saturday, you see some of the cloud coming in. You see a bit of light precipitation trying to show up, even in the form of some flurries. But again, not in southwestern Ontario, just close by if you're traveling on the weekend. And so the winds, they pick up a bit after we get this clearing tomorrow. And some of those westerly winds may be a bit strong too into Saturday, so it'll have a cooler feel before we get going. Overnight readings tonight, because that tends to keep the temperatures up a little bit. They're not very cool, and expect there could be a bit of fog mixed in there as well. And then here we are up to 15 for tomorrow. As we go into the weekend, things looking pretty good to have those drier days to enjoy the flowers. What will be left?
Exactly, and we need a little time to do that before they're gone. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
Busy night on the Detroit River there. You can see lots of boats, and still to come, a teacher who works with kids in special needs is using the stories of popular musicians to inspire her students, and one of those big stars has taken notice. That story is coming up after the break. A Windsor music teacher is still glowing after a recent Andrea Bocelli concert in Detroit. Ms. Madalena Liberti works with teens with special needs. She managed to pass some recordings of the kids singing up to the stage. Her students are from the Life Skills Music Therapy class at F.J. Brennan Catholic High School in East Windsor. She spoke about the experience with Windsor Morning host Amy Dodge.
Andrea Bocelli, and you know what? He has some similar stories as some of our students. And I explained how he's blind and how his own condition did not put a limitation to his success. And the students were so inspired by that. So they said, we want to learn some of his music. And I said, well, you guys already know the song because I would always hear them singing in the halls at Sharon. I said, they did a wonderful duet. Why don't we learn it? So the students said, okay. So they were all excited. And every few weeks, I record them in our studio in the classroom, and our production class will edit their music. And while doing so, they said, we sound famous. Miss, you gotta send this to them. And I'm thinking, I know social media is great, but how am I gonna slide into their DMs and make this work? I'm already going to the concert. Let me try, just on a whim here. We decided to, as a class, we made a 17 by 24 poster. And it was a Christmas picture we took. And I said, why don't we design the front to say, you inspire us, Andrea Bocelli. At the bottom of it, it was their picture. And I said, please pass to the stage. We see Virginia Bocelli, the daughter's Instagram, and she posted 5 photos, and that one photo of her holding it was our students. So now you have my one student, Houston, who says, wow, miss, there was 15,000 at the concert? I said, yeah, all those people saw you and on the Jumbotron. He's like, now millions because Instagram saw us. And I said, yeah. So now they're on a complete cloud 9, and they're famous. What's our next song we're gonna learn, and what poster we're gonna make in our next artist? But they did say we'll hear something from them, so we don't know if it's going to be after the tour or in a couple of weeks, but they're always busy. But hey, just the fact that it got on the stage, my mission was complete.
Mission complete is right. Coming up, an interesting way of keeping officers in India cool during the summer. We tell you what that is. Stay tuned. Some traffic cops in India have found a new way to beat the summer heat. Check out these custom air-conditioned helmets. Police in Western India are now required to wear the cutting-edge headgear amid soaring summer temperatures. Designed with unique features to help cope with the oppressive heat and protect from dehydration, they keep a person cool up to 8 hours and feature a charging port and a protective sun visor. From April to June, various parts of the country now see as many as 20 days with temperatures between 40 to 42 degrees Celsius. That's up from the usual 4 to 8 days in recent years. Well, it's not just humans that enjoy spring weather. Animals like getting out and about as well. The southern white rhinoceroses aren't usually seen on England's pleasant pastures. This was at Whipsnade Zoo. It's the first spring for 6-week-old Benja, born there as part of an endangered species program. The southern white rhino's horns make it the target of poachers. It also faces habitat loss. Only about 10,000 remain worldwide. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.